It's 2024. Are running backs making a comeback? Talk about our top guys here today.
Let's go.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark. We're your hosts, Calvin Timms and Dale Terry, and we're back with another episode. We got our running backs here today. We're pretty excited to get into it, but guys, checking this video out. If you're new, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can hear all of our content over the next couple of weeks. We'll draft here in just a couple of weeks. That's going to be fun. Things are going to get wild. It's going to be a very fun draft. Is Justin Herbert going to get traded? Who knows? We have no idea. There's so much smoke around everything. It's lion season, and it's a good time to be alive. There's the draft coming up. There's all our rankings coming up, and all kinds of off-season. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel so you can get all that content. If you can, leave a comment on the video. Just helps us out, gets us feedback so we can talk to you guys directly. Or, you can give us suggestions, recommendations, whatever you guys want to hear. If there's ever any content that you guys are looking for, just hit us up in the comments down below, and we can make sure we incorporate some of that into the podcast. And then last but not least, like the video so it just gets out there, the algorithm, and whatever. But Dale, how are we doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. I am not blind from the eclipse that we had today. We
Happy
are
Eclipse
recording
Day.
on, happy Eclipse Day, Eclipse Day. If I could talk, it'd be great. We are recording the night after the eclipse. That came through the United States, and we were fortunate enough to be able to see it and experience it in its
Totality.
in its totality and blazes of glory, man. It was as fantastic as some of these running backs as we're going to talk about today.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, we were in the path of Vanward, Ohio, in the very path of total darkness, whatever you want to call it. My sister sent me a picture, and she was not in the path of totality. I was like, oh, that sucks. We got to see it real nice.
It really does. Yeah.
It was a crazy picture of what it was like. And Dale and I were talking before the podcast, it dropped like 15 degrees. Freezing out there during that.
It was weird.
Minutes.
Yeah, it was weird. It was kind of like dusk. So like if you're alive to experience the next one, that comes sweeping through the states, it is a really cool thing to experience.
Yeah, for sure. My son asked me when the next one was, and I said, well, when you're about my age, it should be back again. So
like,
you can go and make sure you look forward to it then.
Right.
But we got a little while to wait. So happy Eclipse Day. Again, check out all our other videos on the channel. We thank you guys. Let's get into it here today. The top 6 Dale and I found was pretty synergistic, and we're giving you our consensus rankings. Dale and I have a little bit of differences, but our top 6 is pretty much identical. And we're starting off with number 1, Bijan Robinson. Again, the talent is just there. He's too good, man. He's too good. We don't have to worry about Arthur Smith this upcoming season, and Bijan is going to be unleashed this year. I think here's the thing that I really want to see from Bijan. And this has happened for the last couple of years. All these number 1 overall running backs, you go back Saquon, you go back to Breece, you go back to some of the other guys in the other years. Oh, have an ACL tear in year 1 or year 2, and it's like, please, can we just have these guys for their whole careers? Like I want to see what Bijan can do without a major career-threatening injury, right? Where ACL, they come back nowadays every year, but it used to not be the case, right? Or an Achilles tear, or whatever it may be. Yeah. And I just want to see Bijan just be healthy this year with a great offense, a good offensive mind around him, as Zach Robinson is the offensive coordinator who's of the Shanahan tree, which means that Bijan's going to get peppered with targets. I mean, last year he had 86 targets, 58 catches for 487 yards as a rookie, as a running back in a Arthur Smith offense, which was not using him at all. The craziest stat that I heard last year was the 5 zone, or like the red zone carries, inside the 5 zone. Bijan had like 3 carries all year as a rookie. Instead, they kept going with who's the other guy? The Tyler Algier or Cordero Patterson. It's like, guys, you took this guy 8 overall. What are you doing? Give him the rock, man. So that's why Arthur Smith got fired. Could not utilize his weapons. Finished RB number 9 last year in full point PPR. with not even 1,000 rushing yards. I think he's going to smash that this year. What are your thoughts on Bijan?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I mean, he was disappointing for people, and
It's
as the
crazy.
RB9, yeah, as the RB9, which is wild. It's wild to think about. I'm really excited about Bijan. I think he's going to be a perfect complement for Kirk Cousins, in the Zach Robinson offense that we're going to see roll out. I think it's going to be great, and I think he's going to be heavily utilized. Like I know that. Um, well, like for Kirk Cousins has used, like he uses his weapons really well, and does I mean, I wouldn't say he favors the running back by any means, but like he had Dalvin Cook in Minnesota that, that he was able to use in the screen game quite a bit. And as long as the best players are out on the field, which I think, for all that we make fun of Arthur Smith, whatever, but like he always didn't put the best I guess quote unquote talent on the field. But
Right. Right.
but yeah, but I'm really excited for Bijan. I think he's gonna be great. I have him a couple places and I'm extremely excited about it, and I can't wait to just see him just explode this year.
Yep. I have him in a few spots as well, and it'll be very nice. He was, again, like you said, disappointing, which is
Yeah,
because he
yeah,
finishes the
yeah,
RB9. But
yeah. And it was just all the hype behind him. And I wouldn't even say it was disappointing. Like there was some weeks that he
you take
obviously
out the
didn't
one
do
game, the
well.
2 weeks where he had zero point 0.4 points, then zero
Uh,
point 0.3 points.
point three.
It was like
Yeah,
you take out those 2 weeks and
he
points
was
per
fine.
game.
He
It
was
was
fine.
so.
Yeah. He was still fine with Arthur Smith pulling him out for sometimes
Yep.
where he only played, 3/4 of the snaps and stuff like that. So, I think it's gonna be interesting to see what his usage is and to see really if this offense is higher pace than Arthur Smith, which I would assume it would be. So, there's going to be more plays, and his snap percentages may be similar to what they were last year, but he has more opportunities. I think it's going to be really interesting to see their pace.
Yep, for sure. Now, the reason why I have him, and we both have him as our number one, the reason why I have him personally ahead of our number two guy, which is going to be Breece Hall, the thumbnail winner here today, is because of the explosion factor for Bijan Robinson. And I think Breece Hall is extremely explosive. He's a prototypical running back, right? On a very good team, loaded team. Like he's in a spot where he doesn't have to worry about competition at all. There's nobody in New York that's going to really push him. Same with Bijan in Atlanta. And you can make the argument that we've seen a little bit more from Bijan because he came into the league at 20 years old, right? Been doing it nonstop ever since. But the reason why he's my number two is just I don't think what we saw from Bijan is his ceiling. I think that is his floor, what we saw last year. And Bijan, you know, I think his ceiling is extremely high, but I do think it is behind Bijan Robinson. And, 95 targets last year, 76 catches. It's going to be interesting to see if he can do that again this year with Aaron Rodgers supposedly, presumably taking all the snaps under center this year. We'll see how that kind of falls, but I don't know if he's going to be able to live up to 95. He has good hands. Obviously, he has very good hands. He can handle that kind of workload, and he's so explosive. The entire offense ran through Breece Hall last year, right? But, just under 1,000 yards. Go ahead.
Yes and no. I think some of his stats are deceiving because he did explode the last 3 weeks, like having over 300 yards, or excuse me, over 500 yards,
Right. Right.
of scrimmage yards the last 3 weeks, and we in the fantasy community really can sometimes hold on to those moments that we saw at
Yeah.
the end of the year.
Yep.
But honestly, I'm with you. I'm not worried about Breece. I'm interested to see how this offense is going to flow. Hopefully their offensive line is better. You know, I I
It,
believe that David Bakhtiari is still floating out there, so it's going
yeah.
to be
They
interesting to
they
yeah,
traded
it's going
for
to be interesting.
they traded for the left tackle from the extra left tackle from the Ravens. They
Mhm.
added a couple of veteran guys. And they also still have the 10 pick, which people are talking about them potentially trading up to,
It
6 or
could
8 or something to try and jump a
right.
couple people to secure a left tackle of the future. So I think that is their entire goal. This entire offseason is just
I
make
agree.
sure that offensive line, which has been putrid for many, many years.
Years,
And,
years.
if that
Yes.
offensive line gets better, that just means better things for Breece as well. Again, I think that,
100%.
it's a 1A, 1B type of thing for me in these two
Mhm.
guys. I have them in a tier of their own personally, but I just prefer Bijan a little bit more because I think he's a little bit more natural at the pass catching. And I do think that his explosion was not able to be showcased last year, where Breece, we saw his explosive plays. They are all over his tape, right? He can pop off a big run almost at will, it feels like. But we didn't see that so much from Bijan, and I think that's more the Arthur Smith factor versus the Bijan factor. So we'll see after this year if there's going to be any shifts in these two rankings. Maybe in a year's time, Breece Hall will be mine RB1. But for now, I still have Bijan. They're the same age, which they're very young, and it's great to
Yes,
have
they
these
are.
two
Yes.
in Dynasty. So
Yes.
any last thoughts on Breece?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just excited to see what he does with a competent quarterback because their offense was so inept with their shuffling quarterbacks,
Yeah.
whether
Yep.
it was Zach Wilson or I can't remember their other quarterback they had last year. It was
Uh,
horrible. It was atrocious, and it was horrible watching that offensive line. I mean, I'm all for it because I'm a Dolphins fan, and I know you're a Patriots fan, and you loved it, even though the Patriots were horrible too.
yeah, but at least the Jets
I
were
was
worse.
that is true, and that
Well,
is a
they
great
weren't worse. I
feeling.
guess we have the 3 pick,
Well,
but you
well,
know what I
but
mean. They had
yes,
playoff aspirations. We did not.
they just played very inept last year, and a lot of it really hung up on Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah,
And I do think I do feel hopefully, I would assume that we're projecting Aaron's going to be there for the whole year at least.
yeah. I'm super
And
excited for the
yes,
Jets to draft JJ McCarthy at 10 to light a fire under Aaron Rodgers.
I think Aaron Rodgers might do something to JJ McCarthy if that's the case. I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be.
Oh, that'd be funny. That'd be funny.
Yes, it
All
would
right.
be hilarious to watch that happen.
All right, let's
But
go to our number 3 here. We have so the next two, because we're doing this consensus, we have these guys flip flopped in our rankings. I am one spot higher on Jahmyr Gibbs than Dale is, but he's one spot higher on McCaffrey than I am. So we have McCaffrey and Gibbs as our tied for third running back 3-4 here. And the biggest difference for me is just the age. And, I like McCaffrey, and McCaffrey is a league winner. Don't hear what I'm not saying. As long as he is in a 49ers uniform and he has not completely fallen off, the dude is just insane. And there's no denying that. He had almost 400 points. Looking at Breece Hall, who was the running back 2, had 290 points. McCaffrey had 100 points more than him in a single season with one less game. Like, the dude was nuts. There were the odds for him to vote for the betting odds for him to get a touchdown every week were negative odds the entire season. He had
wow.
negative odds for 2 touchdowns a game for most of the season. Like, the dude was just on an absolute tear ever since he's came to San Francisco. And this is what it's always funny to me because, people have been saying, well, why would San Francisco invest in a running back? They can just make anything happen with any of these guys. I've been saying for years, get one of like a Dalvin Cook, get a Christian McCaffrey. They finally do it, and it's like, oh my gosh, the game is broken with McCaffrey here.
Yes,
So,
yes.
McCaffrey, very good player. Older. That's the only downside in his career right now. He's 27 years old.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's past that running back age cliff, which I actually don't think is the same for these elite guys. I know that that's been a talking point for years, but when you're a super elite athlete like Christian McCaffrey and somebody we're going to talk about in tomorrow's episode, I don't think that the age cliff really is the same to these guys. So Christian McCaffrey, if he's still being this productive until he's 30, I would not be shocked. Now, you do have to worry. There were multiple times where you could see him grimacing, and I get it. Running back's a tough position. Like, I'm not getting 5 yards, right? So even with the best offensive line, I'm getting maybe 1 if I'm lucky, right? Christian McCaffrey, very tough player, very good guy. But again, he is older. He's had the injuries in his past, so hopefully it doesn't come to a catastrophic end for him, but that's the only thing that I could see derailing his career at this point. you look at that Green, man, that if he plays a full season, he's guaranteed top 10. So he's my 4, your 3. Let me hear your thoughts on him as well.
I think the biggest thing with CMC is that, and why I ranked him ahead of Gibbs is because I know there's David Montgomery lurking in the shadows in Detroit, and I kn- I'm being on, like, who is Christian McCaffrey's backup?
Right.
Elijah
Yeah.
Mitchell,
Yeah.
I mean, which is still a good running back, but it's not quite to the same tier as as a David Montgomery that we've talked about before. So, I mean, I think he, like, Christian McCaffrey is inevitable. He is, and I do agree with you that, you know, barring an injury, he's probably going to be the running back 1 or 2 this year again, and probably the year after. So, I don't think he's necessarily going to hit that cliff for a couple years. And, injury is always a concern with running backs and Christian McCaffrey because he was out a couple years, but I think that's going to help him in the long run because he doesn't have those, season and a half of wear and tear on him. So, even though he was injured, he's not having those extra added hits and extra things going on. So, um, like, this offense runs through Christian McCaffrey, and and I don't really necessarily believe that with Gibbs necessarily. I mean, he's a part of the cog. He's a cog in the machine, and Christian McCaffrey is the machine, in my opinion.
Right.
So, that's the biggest difference. And, I would have CMC one, like 1A, 1B, like with Bijan potentially. But, again, like what you're saying, age, is the biggest thing with
The
him.
only dude,
So,
if you took off 2 years of his age, like if he could
100%,
go back in time
100%.
2 years, dude, he's number 1 overall.
Yes,
Sure. So
100%, 100%.
McCaffrey, very good player. I just
Yes,
like the youth potential. I think Breece and Bijan are on their way to be Christian McCaffrey. Only
100%.
hope, right? You can only hope you got
Yes,
those
yes.
guys. Now, Gibbs,
Agreed.
on the other hand, I have him one spot ahead. Same age as the other two that we already talked about. A little bit of a smaller guy. But again, the receiving threat is why I like him. All 3 of these guys are massive receiving options. Now, the question for Gibbs, the biggest question is going to be whether or not they are going to continue to lean on David Montgomery. And, you go back to the DeAndre Swift days with this regime, right? This coaching staff. They didn't like to give him a ton of usage either, but I don't know if Swift was the same athlete that Gibbs was. Swift had a lot of shoulder injuries early in his NFL career,
Yeah.
a couple of leg injuries, not the ACLs or anything like that, but it was just constant like nicks and bruises where maybe he could have gotten to the like if you go back to that draft class, Swift was in some people's mind RB1 of that draft class. So he's a very good player, but it just hasn't been able to pan out to that in the NFL. Jahmyr Gibbs is a very good player, same level as DeAndre Swift. Now we'll see if, I think he's a little bit fresher, I guess is the best way to say it with Swift, where maybe he's, doesn't have all those nicks and those bumps and those bruises that maybe he can live up to the ceiling that Swift ultimately had when he was coming out, right? So you saw his explosion on the field, especially when they started to give him a chance more in the season.
Yeah.
You look at the beginning of the year, right? 8 points, 13 points, 9, missed 2 games, and then just absolute terror after that.
To the
27,
moon right there.
30,
Yeah.
27, 22, 12, 7, 17, 25, 24. Like he just came on real hot in the back half of the season. So can he do that again is the biggest question. And I believe he can. I really do think, they gave up the 12 pick for him. They wanted to take him at 6 overall ahead of Bijan Robinson. Like that's how much the Lions believe in this kid. The question is just whether or not they were trying to bring him on a little bit slowly just because they have David Montgomery, or if that's ultimately their plan. I personally believe that their plan was just to bring him on a little bit more slowly to, acclimate to the NFL, to not have to have the world on his shoulders versus, that's their game plan is to, we took this guy really high, but we're not going to use him as much. They're not Arthur
Right.
Smith and Jahmyr Gibbs. I think it was all by design. That's kind of how they've taken that approach with a lot of their offensive rookies so far. Laporta being a little bit of an exception, but he was just so freaking good last year. So Yeah, Gibbs, I think the ceiling is up there, and that youth aspect is why I have him ahead of McCaffrey. But let's hear your thoughts on Gibbs.
Yeah, I love Gibbs as well. Like I said, like I feel he's a cog in the machine that's going on in Detroit. I think it's going to run really well this year again. I'm really excited to watch him. And I don't necessarily think David Montgomery eats into his fantasy and dynasty value a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are some things, but I think they both can coexist and coexist well with each other because they are very different backs. So I'm not worried about I'm not worried about Montgomery taking stuff from Gibbs, vice versa. So yeah, I love Gibbs for all the reasons you said. I think he's gonna be a part of the passing game. I think it's gonna be interesting to see what they do in the draft. I can see them going a little, I don't want to say defensive heavy, but and to shore up that side of the ball because they have made a lot of advancements um on the offense side of the ball. So I'm really excited to see what they do. I think it's gonna be great and fine and fun. So I'm all here for it for Gibbs. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, very good player, very young. It's a very nice grouping, and it's I talked about it at the top of the show. 2024, is this the year that the running back starts to make a comeback? Because nobody wants these guys right now, and we're going through the startup that we just did, and a lot of receivers go early, and I get it. You like the youth; they last longer. The ceiling's there as well with these young guys, but seems like there's definitely some value, and running back is starting to make a comeback. So, good time to be buying these young guys, and there's a lot of them on the come up because we're losing a lot of the older guys. Dalvin Cooks, a lot of the older guy, the old guard is starting to be replaced. We did a video on it last year, but yeah, it's finally here, and it's scary, but I think it's finally time. So.
yeah,
All right, running back number 5 for us. We had a tie on this one as well. It's going to be Jonathan Taylor with the Colts. JT, I think he's being undervalued personally, man. Like, I don't understand this, like why he's being so devalued. But go back last 2 years, only played 11 in 2022, 10 this last year. The Colts, they put him on IR to start the season, which was terrible. That was an awful feeling. And then week 5 brought him up slowly again in week 6. The guy didn't have more than 70% of the snaps until week 9. Only had 3 games all year last year, over 70% of the snaps. Really didn't utilize him as much as you would kind of hope for a team that just paid him a ton of money. But at the same time, he had a little bit of a rocky start, was coming off that foot injury from 2022. People were saying that's why he went on IR to start the season. And then on the flip side, because he missed a lot of training camp, he started on the IR. His body wasn't football ready for a lot of the season. That's why he ended up leaving again in the later half of the season to go out. But finished with a bang, finished with 96 yards and 188 yards against Houston in week 18. I still believe in the talent of Jonathan Taylor, and we have not seen him. We have not seen him with Anthony Richardson at all yet. Anthony Richardson is going to open up another level for Jonathan Taylor just because of the
yes,
rushing threat that AR is. Those guys are symbiotic because JT is such a dominant runner that he's going to open up holes for AR. Who are you guys going to cover? And then you pair that with Anthony Richardson is looking to throw the ball first, right? And he always has that run. He's kind of like a Lamar Jackson in that aspect where Lamar, the last couple of seasons, hasn't looked to run first. AR is kind of modeling that a little bit. And I know you don't like his passing ability, but man, this offense, if it's clicking, is going to be fun to watch.
and very dynamic. It's
Oh
going to
my
be
gosh.
fascinating to
Yes.
watch. Yes.
And the best thing about it is I like the fact that Shane Steichen is on paper and what we've seen so far a very good offensive mind.
hmm
We talked about this last year. A lot of people weren't talking about it enough, in my opinion, of the Eagles losing Shane Steichen and him
Yep.
going over to the Colts. Well, the Colts offense looked really good. The Eagles, after about 4 or 5 weeks, did not look very good, right? They kind of fell
Yep.
off, weren't able to improvise and replace the plays down the stretch, and that's why the Eagles ultimately exploded last year. I think that this guy is going to stud in this offense. We saw what Zach Moss was able to do, and Zach Moss, he took a lot of snaps away from Jonathan Taylor, even when both were healthy. I think that Jonathan Taylor can far surpass what Zach Moss was able to do, and he's only 25, guys. Like, Jonathan Taylor is not going to fall off completely this next year just because of the imaginary age cliff, right? Again, these superstar athletes, it just does not exist the same for them, in my opinion. So I think Jonathan Taylor, you probably have like 3-4 more years of elite play from him, or he does
Agreed.
start to fall off a little there. Now, health is going to be a big concern, but I believe he can do it. In 10 games last year, he had 7 touchdowns. You get him up, and this is, with 60% of the snaps. You get him up to a 75 with Anthony Richardson, with this offensive line kicking in. I could see him being back around 15 touchdowns yet again, 40 targets yet again. That's kind of his peak in his career. He's going to be top 5 running back in 24. So, what are your thoughts on JT?
I don't think I could have said that any better, Calvin. And I
Thank
don't say that often for you. I know, I
you.
know, I know. So yeah, it's the biggest thing with Jonathan Taylor is that we have not seen him yet with Anthony Richardson,
Yep.
and I think it's going to be like the Ravens and Lamar Jackson on steroids. It's going to be nuts to see what they can do rushing the ball, and like like it's just more time for him to get healthier. He was banged up all year. And some of it was the contract issues and all this and that. So like they finally got that resolved, and I think this offense is it's gonna hum. It's gonna be fantastic. I think I'm a little worried about about pass catching, but I think that's gonna be there. That's gonna be there with some dump offs and stuff like that, and I think that's primarily what he's going to be used for. I don't think it's going to be a lot of big pass catching things like we've are going to see like with Gibbs, Bijan, CMC, like those players. So that's kind of why he's tiered down where he is. But on the rushing ability, like he's one of the best rushers of the ball in the NFL. Um, and this offensive line and offense as a whole, stayed pretty much the same. It's for this offseason. It didn't
Yep.
really change a whole lot,
Yep.
which
Colts
I think is
bring back their
really
guys, right?
good.
Yeah. They love
Yeah,
to
yeah,
bring back their guys.
which is awesome for the continuity, and stuff like that. So I think he's gonna be great this year, and I do agree with you. Like he has at least 2 or 3 years of high end quality NFL left,
Right. And the best thing
at
for
least.
the best thing for JT still going too is on paper, he only had 741 yards. But again, you look at the snaps, and he was averaging around 55% of snaps last year. Still in the green in his yards per carry, his touchdowns. Targets were still there, 19 catches with that limited amount.
Yeah.
55% of snaps over 10 games, too. So literally like half a season, right? You
Mhm.
double all those numbers, and he's going to be doing just fine. 1,400
Yes.
yards, 200 on the ground, whatever it is, 15 touchdowns. He's going to be a stud. So, JT, our number 5 running back here. And our last guy, we are consensus on this one as well, is going to be Kyren Williams with the LA Chargers. And again, he is the poster child of why draft capital does not matter for running backs, or in general. Good players are good players, right? But Kyren Williams, he's scary. I won't lie, but
Yes.
he was so good last year. He finishes the
He was
running back 7
fantastic.
in 12.
Yeah.
Like the dude had
Nuts. It was
1,100
nuts.
yards in 12 games, and he's small. Don't get me wrong here, but 48 targets, 32 catches, only 200 yards receiving. Everyone's kind of, in my mind, a lot of people are attributing his fantasy success to receptions. It's not true. Like he was dominant on the ground. And the biggest thing for me that was a shocker was the LA Rams were considered a terrible offensive line going into 2023. Like people were terrified for this offensive line because 2022 it all imploded, right? That's what got Stafford killed, imploded the entire playoff run that year. You look at 2023, right? And their offensive line should be getting better because it's young, right? So they should all be taking a step forward. I don't anticipate them they have a first round pick finally for the first time in forever. But I don't anticipate them taking a running back highly in this draft. I could see, with Puka, his resurgence, They have Matt Stafford. They have Cooper Kupp. Offensive line, if it stays good, the biggest thing that is going to help Kyron even more, in my opinion, is the fact that they lost Aaron Donald. So they're going to need to score more points, and that's where Kyron is going to be coming in handy. 12 touchdowns again. Good player. And I'm not concerned about his size. I'm a little nervous about his size, I'm not going to lie, but I think that he's just so explosive, and you pair that with Sean McVay. It's all, what more could you ask for? So what are your thoughts on Kyron here?
Yeah, he's the scariest player that I've ranked so far,
I
and
agree, man.
probably in this whole list that we have in our top 12, he's probably the one of the scariest players that we have. And
Mhm.
well, I don't want to say scariest, most volatile. I
Right.
I, I guess we could say. So, I think if he's on the field, he's great. He did great. Like uh, there are some years where I will play redraft,
Hmm.
and I got him off the waiver. I got him and Puka off the waivers, early on in the year, and I rode these guys all the way to the playoffs. It was fantastic, and he was a plug and play every week.
Yeah.
Every single week, I did not have to think about it, even though I had more highly drafted players in there. So, if he's on the field, he's gonna play great. He's gonna be fine. I do worry. I mean, he does have a little bit of injury history, in his rookie year. Like he was injured a little bit. So, I think it's gonna be interesting to see what they do in the draft because really their running back room is pretty lackluster after Kyron. It's Zach Evans, who we
Yep.
all loved last year, who was undrafted.
Yep.
Ronnie Rivers, who we
Right.
don't know who this guy is, and then Royce Freeman, who will never leave the NFL. So,
Right.
I can see them picking up another running back, but I don't think that's going to hurt Williams, at all.
No.
So, as long as he has Stafford there, running that offense, I think he's going to be fine.
Yep.
I'd be a little bit more worried about him with a rookie. I can see him getting dump offs, but I think this offense runs a lot better with a higher tiered quarterback,
Yep.
obviously.
Sure. And I could see like a fourth round Will Shipley or something like that, third round Will
Yeah,
Shipley,
yeah,
somebody like that,
yeah.
to come in and just be a compliment to the offense. Because again, Kyron Williams was not really a dominator in the passing game, right? He's definitely taken a step forward in the pass protection, but he's not the most natural receiver out there for a running back, right? So, um, but again, it feels, at least to me, it felt like a lot of his production came from the receiving game. He was shifty.
Yes.
It was so good to watch. So, yeah, the best thing about him was the plug and play nature of him. Again, you could just put him in there and just, all right, I got 15. All right, I got 18. Oh, I got 40 points. Like he was just so good for that. So feels good, especially at running back when you have to worry about, oh, is this guy is he gonna fumble himself out of the game? Who knows, right? You just don't have to worry
Right.
about that. So Kyron, good player, scary player, but very good player. So that is our top 6. We will be back here at the end of the week with our part 2 in this, and we got some good names, so you'll have to come back out again. Please follow us on Twitter at TDC_Calvin, at Dynasty_Dale, at FF After Dark. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment down below, hit us up. Whatever you guys are looking to do, we're appreciative of you. Dale, any last thoughts?
Send it on home.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time.
And we all got dreams, we all want things, but what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna be?